Hello everyone, and welcome to Earth Archives. Today we're going to talk about an ancient and fascinating topic, the origin of life. How did we come into being? This question has always been one of the most challenging and captivating mysteries in human history. Surrounding this question, two major theories have been in constant debate: creationism and evolution. Whether scientists, philosophers, or ordinary people, opinions on these two theories are often divided, and this debate continues to this day. Today, let's dive in and explore the stories behind these two theories to see how each of them explains our existence. Creationism versus evolution. Two completely different worldviews. Creationism and evolution, while both answering the same question, how did life originate, provide radically different answers, representing two completely opposing worldviews. Creationism asserts that all life, from the earliest primitive forms to today's complex organisms, was created by some supernatural intelligence. This creator can be a god, extraterrestrial life, or even some form of higher intelligence. The central idea of creationism is that life's existence is not a random occurrence, but rather the result of a purposeful design and arrangement by an invisible force. This viewpoint is deeply embedded in many religions and cultures, particularly in faiths like Christianity and Islam, where creationism forms the core doctrine regarding the origin of the universe and life. In contrast, evolution provides a different explanation, asserting that life's origin was not the result of direct external creation, but rather developed through natural processes and long-term evolution, with simple inorganic matter evolving into a variety of life forms. This theory, first proposed by Charles Darwin, has gained widespread support in modern biology. According to evolution, all life on Earth has undergone billions of years of evolution, with species gradually developing into today's complex forms through genetic mutations, natural selection, and environmental changes. The key concept emphasized in evolution is survival of the fittest, meaning organisms continuously adapt to new living conditions based on changes in their environment. These two theories may seem to address the same question on the surface, but in reality, they touch upon much deeper philosophical, religious, and cultural issues. Supporters of creationism believe that the origin of life is filled with mystery and purpose, and they believe there is a designer in the universe who has imbued life with special meaning. On the other hand, supporters of evolution emphasize that the evolution of life is a random process in nature, focusing on natural laws and scientific evidence, and adopting a more humble view of humanity's place in the universe. The emergence of evolution and its clash with creationism can be traced back to the 19th century. When Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859, the ideas of evolution began to sharply conflict with traditional creationist thought. Supporters of creationism argued that evolution undermined the religious explanation of life's sacred origin, while evolutionists contended that creationism lacked empirical evidence and could not explain the changes and diversity of species. This debate extended beyond the scientific field, influencing education, politics, and the broader cultural values of society. Exploration of the continent and the birth of evolutionary theory. In the history of evolutionary theory, Charles Darwin is undoubtedly one of the most iconic figures. In 1859, Darwin published his classic work On the Origin of Species, a book that completely overturned the conventional understanding of the origin of life at the time. The prevailing view was that species were created by deities and that they did not undergo significant changes. But Darwin's theory prompted humanity to reconsider the true origin of species and life itself. However, it's important to understand that Darwin's groundbreaking discovery did not come overnight. It took 5 years of careful observation and exploration before he gradually developed his theory of evolution. Initially, Darwin did not immediately conceive of the theory of evolution. His voyage was simply a scientific expedition, and as he and his crew observed plants and animals around the world, Darwin did not realize that he was about to make such a momentous discovery. However, everything changed when he arrived at the Galapagos Islands. The plants and animals on these islands, especially certain species of birds, opened his eyes. He observed that the same species on different islands showed only slight but noticeable physical differences. This phenomenon led Darwin to question, did these organisms come from a common ancestor? And could these differences have occurred due to slight variations as the species adapted to the specific environments of each island? This observation sparked profound reflection in Darwin. He began to speculate that species were not fixed and unchanging from the start, but instead, over time, were influenced by natural selection and environmental pressures, gradually changing. Those organisms that were better able to adapt to their environment were more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on these adaptive traits to their offspring. This became the core concept of Darwin's theory of evolution, natural selection. This process acts like a filter of nature, preserving traits that are best suited to the environment, while traits that are less adaptive gradually fade away. Darwin's discovery not only transformed the foundation of biology, but also challenged contemporary religious beliefs and philosophical views, particularly regarding creationism. Many people were skeptical of this theory, as it contradicted the long-held belief that life was created by God. However, as more scientific evidence and experimental results supported the theory, evolution gradually gained acceptance and became the central theory for explaining the diversity of life and the evolution of species. The evolution of life, from single-celled organisms to complex beings. Darwin's theory of evolution is a fascinating story about how life has undergone countless changes over a long period of time, evolving from simple to complex, from singular to diverse. This theory was not accepted overnight. When Darwin first proposed it, many people were skeptical, and even some biologists raised doubts. His theory suggested that life was not designed by a creator, but instead evolved through long-term natural selection over billions of years. Imagine billions of years ago, Earth had no life, only inorganic materials moving across the land. Then, at some point, these materials began to combine, forming the simplest organic compounds. These earliest organic molecules, through constant change and differentiation, gradually evolved into the multicellular organisms we see today. Every slight change in this process was an adaptation to the environment. Some evolved wings, others learned to hide, and some became stronger. These changes not only allowed species to survive, but also enabled them to thrive and evolve on Earth. However, when Darwin first proposed the theory of evolution, not everyone believed in it. Scientists still do not have enough evidence to fully support the idea of how life evolved step by step. Many people questioned whether transitional forms truly existed between species and whether there was a process through which one animal became another. At the time, the scientific community had not yet explored fossil evidence in sufficient depth, so these questions could not be answered immediately. As time passed, more fossils were discovered, and evidence of transitional species gradually emerged. For example, transitional fossils between reptiles and birds, such as the famous Archaeopteryx, clearly showed how reptiles gradually developed the ability to fly. This not only answered questions about transitional forms, but also provided strong support for Darwin's theory of evolution. The development of genetics, unraveling the code of life's evolution. After the introduction of the theory of evolution, another significant challenge was explaining the genetics and variation of species. While Darwin cleverly introduced the concept of natural selection in On the Origin of Species, explaining how species survive through environmental selection, favoring individuals with stronger adaptability, he did not provide a detailed explanation of the specific source of variation in species or how it is passed on. Darwin once proposed a vague hypothesis to try to explain how variation was transmitted across generations. But this explanation was incomplete and did not resolve many of the scientific community's questions at the time. The true answer to this problem came with the advent of Mendel's genetic experiments. Through extensive research on pea plants, Mendel discovered the basic principles of heredity and proposed the theory of genes. His findings revealed that the characteristics of each species are not randomly altered, but rather determined by stable units of heredity, genes. These genes function like blueprints for organisms, dictating the appearance, behavior, and even some physiological traits of plants and animals. These genes are passed on to the next generation during reproduction and follow specific hereditary patterns. Mendel's theory of genetics not only provided a clear explanation for the inheritance of species traits, but also made the theoretical framework of evolution much more complete. It turned out that the variation in species was not random, but driven by different combinations and mutations of genes. These variations are then filtered through the process of natural selection, leading to the gradual transmission of more advantageous traits. This discovery significantly enhanced the scientific community's understanding of evolution. The controversy of evolution and its philosophical challenges. Even though the theory of evolution has gained significant acceptance in the scientific community, it still faces major challenges from the philosophical realm. One of the most prominent controversies is its challenge to the meaning of human existence. If our lives are the result of a long and random evolutionary process, does that mean our existence truly has meaning? This question not only deeply stirs the minds of the scientific community, but also shakes the values of countless believers. If humanity's birth is merely the outcome of natural selection, with no higher design or creation, does the meaning of life become meaningless or even devoid of foundation? Such doubts have sparked profound philosophical reflection in many people's minds. Evolution views human existence as a continuation of a natural process shared with other life forms in the universe, which stands in stark contrast to the religious concept of creationism. Many people began to question, if we were not created by God, is human existence accidental or inevitable? If human life does not come from a divine purpose, how should we understand our value? For many believers, these questions are undoubtedly a massive challenge to their worldview. At the same time, the atheistic worldview of evolution has had a profound and significant impact on philosophy. Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead," a statement that directly pointed to the atheistic thinking brought about by evolution. From this perspective, evolution shifted the origin of humanity from being a divine creation to the result of natural laws and random variation. This view led to profound skepticism about the concept of God and sparked a re-evaluation of morality, ethics, and the meaning of existence. However, this also gave rise to new philosophical movements, attempting to find meaning in life within an atheistic framework. Some philosophers argue that although human existence may not come from the will of a God, that doesn't mean our lives are meaningless. On the contrary, this explanation provides humanity with more freedom to define its own values and goals. The universality and relentless natural laws of evolution make humanity seem insignificant in the grand scale of the universe. But it is precisely this insignificance that gives each individual's life and each choice unique value. The integration of creationism and evolution, finding consensus. As science has advanced, more and more people have begun to attempt to integrate creationism and evolution, seeking a middle ground that accommodates both faith and the explanation of natural phenomena. This perspective holds that the Creator established the universe and natural laws, while the process of evolution is the result of these laws in action. Simply put, they do not reject creationism, but instead believe that God created the laws governing nature, which are revealed through the process of natural selection. For example, some believe that the creation of the universe was God's work, while the process of natural selection is a rule designed by God. This idea aligns more closely with deism, which holds that God created the world but does not intervene in its daily operations, allowing everything to develop according to established natural laws. This integrated view attempts to resolve the conflict between creationism and evolution, offering believers a faith system that can coexist with modern science. For these individuals, the theory of evolution no longer contradicts creationism, but can instead be seen as one of the natural laws designed by God. In other words, this does not imply that God no longer exists or that God does not create life, but rather that God designed the process of evolution in such a way that life gradually developed its present diversity over a long period of time. Nevertheless, the debate between creationism and evolution, both scientifically and philosophically, still has no clear resolution. The scientific community's understanding of evolution continues to deepen, and new evidence has provided us with more insight into the origins of life. Yet it also brings new questions and challenges. For example, discoveries related to gene mutations and transitional forms between species still require further explanation. Even the theory of evolution itself may be adjusted and refined as new experimental results emerge over time. Does it really matter where we come from? Finally, we return to a question. Does it really matter where we come from? The answer is absolutely. Our understanding of the origin of life not only shapes the way we view the world, but also profoundly influences our values and behaviors. This is not just a scientific question. It concerns philosophy, morality, and even each of our personal beliefs. Whether it is creationism or evolution, these theories go beyond mere scientific explanations. They touch on how we perceive ourselves, understand humanity's role, and establish our ethical foundations. For this question, each person may have a different perspective. Some believe that we were designed by an intelligent creator, with every detail of life filled with divine intention and arrangement. Others think that we are the result of countless random events in the universe, that life has evolved over long periods from simple molecules and species. Such perspectives might lead us to understand the meaning of life in different ways, even shaping how we view ethics and relationships with others. Perhaps this question will never have a definitive answer, but it is these profound questions that are worth pondering and exploring. They make us reflect on human origins, meaning, and how we should live, how we treat ourselves and others. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on more fascinating topics. See you next time.